The ships came without warning on a Tuesday morning in March. Sam Corbin was drinking his coffee on the bridge of the carrier. Defiance when the first alerts started screaming. He set down his cup and walked to the main display, and what he saw there made his blood run cold. There were thousands of them. Massive warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation around Earth, they blocked out the sun over every major city. They filled the orbital lanes like a dark metal storm. Sam had served in the Coalition Navy for 30 years. He had seen battles and wars and things that gave him nightmares. But he had never seen anything like this. "Sir," said his communications officer, a young woman named Lisa Park. Her voice was shaking. "We are receiving a transmission. It is coming from all of them at once." Sam nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and then a face appeared. It was not human. The creature had gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were completely black, like pools of oil. When it spoke, its voice was deep and cold, like stones grinding together in the dark. "I am Archon Valethus, Supreme Commander of the Velthari Empire. Your species has been evaluated. You have been found acceptable for service. You will kneel before the Empire. You will surrender your worlds, your ships, your weapons, and your freedom. You will become part of our great civilization. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. You have 6 hours to respond." The screen went dark. Sam stood very still for a long moment. Around him, his crew was silent. He could hear someone crying quietly at one of the back stations. He understood. He wanted to cry too, but he was the Admiral. He could not show fear. "Not now. Get me Captain Mitchell," he said, "and open a channel to Earth. I need to speak with President Brooks." Laura Mitchell arrived on the bridge 10 minutes later. She was a small woman with short dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been Sam's second-in-command for 5 years. He trusted her more than anyone else in the fleet. "I have been looking at their ships," she said. Her voice was calm, but Sam could see the fear in her eyes. "They are not just bigger than ours. They are better. Their weapons, their shields, their engines, everything. If we fight them directly, we will lose. It will not even be close." Sam nodded slowly. "How bad?" "They outnumber us 50-1, and each of their ships is worth 10% of ours." She paused. "Sam, I do not think we can win this." Before he could respond, the screen lit up again. This time it showed a face Sam knew well. President Nathan Brooks was a tall man in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. He looked tired. He looked scared. But there was something else in his expression too. Something hard and stubborn. "Admiral Corbin," the president said, "I assume you saw the transmission?" "Yes, sir." "We are analyzing their fleet now. The situation is not good, I know." Brooks was quiet for a moment. "I have been in contact with our allies on the colony worlds. The Velthari have sent the same message to all of them. They expect us to kneel. They expect us to give up without a fight." Sam felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What are your orders, sir?" The president looked directly into the camera. His eyes were steady now. The fear was still there, but something else had joined it. Something that looked almost like defiance. "Admiral, I have studied the Velthari. In the last hour, I have learned everything our intelligence services know about them. They have conquered 47 species across this galaxy. Every single one of them knelt. Every single one of them became slaves. Their children are slaves. Their grandchildren are slaves. For some species, it has been this way for 1,000 years." He paused. "I will not let that happen to humanity. I will not let our children grow up in chains. I will not let our grandchildren forget what freedom means." Sam felt his heart beating faster. "Sir, are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am about to address the world," Brooks said, "and I am going to tell them the truth. We are facing an enemy we probably cannot defeat. We are facing a choice between slavery and death, but I believe there is a third option. I believe that if we fight hard enough and long enough, we can make them understand that humanity is not worth the trouble. I believe that we can survive this. But only if we refuse to give up. Only if we refuse to kneel. The transmission ended. Sam turned to look at Laura. She was staring at the screen with an expression he had never seen before. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was hope. He is really going to do it, she said. He is going to tell them no. Yes, Sam said. He is. An hour later, every human in the galaxy watched as President Nathan Brooks stood in front of the cameras. Behind him, through the windows of his office, they could see the shadows of Velthari ships blocking out the sky. He looked small against that darkness. He looked fragile. He looked human. But when he spoke, his voice was strong. My fellow humans, he began. Today we face the greatest threat in our history. An empire that has conquered worlds without number has come to our doorstep. They have given us a choice, kneel or die. They expect us to choose as every other species has chosen. They expect us to give up. They expect us to surrender our freedom, our dignity, and our future. He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but somehow more powerful. I have thought long and hard about what to tell you. I have thought about the easy path, the safe path, the path that might let us survive a little longer in chains. And I have decided that I cannot ask you to walk that path. I cannot ask you to give up everything that makes us who we are. I cannot ask our children to grow up as slaves. He looked directly into the camera. So here is what I will say to the Velthari Empire. Here is what humanity will say to the galaxy. Here is our answer to their ultimatum. He took a deep breath. We refuse to kneel across the 12 colony worlds. In every city, in every ship, in every small outpost on the edge of known space, humans heard those words, and something changed in them. Fear did not disappear, but something else grew beside it. Something old and fierce and unbreakable. Sam Corbin stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched his crew. They were still scared. They were still facing impossible odds. But they were also standing taller now. They were also ready to fight. You heard the president? He said. All hands to battle stations. We have work to do. The war had begun. Archon, Veldus, did not understand. He had conquered 47 species across the galaxy. Every single one of them had knelt when they saw the size of his fleet. Every single one of them had chosen survival over pride. But these humans, these small, soft creatures from a small, wet world, had refused. He stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue planet spinning slowly below him. His officers waited in silence. They did not understand either. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever said no. Perhaps they did not understand the message, one of his commanders suggested. Perhaps their translation was poor. They understood, Veldus said. His voice was cold and flat. They simply do not believe we will follow through. They think we are bluffing. They need a demonstration. He turned to his weapons officer. Target 3 of their outer colonies. The ones called New Hope, Meridian, and Frontier Station. Destroy them completely. Leave no survivors. The weapons officer hesitated for just a moment. 3 colonies meant billions of lives. But he had served the Empire for a long time. He knew better than to question an order. He pressed the button across the galaxy. 3 human worlds died in fire. Sam Corbin was on the bridge when the reports came in. He watched the footage in silence. He saw cities burning. He saw ships exploding. He saw the final transmissions from people who knew they were about to die. One of them was from a young girl, no more than 10 years old, who looked into the camera and said, "Tell my mom I love her." Laura Mitchell stood beside him. Tears were running down her face, but her voice was steady when she spoke. 3 billion people, gone in minutes. Sam could not speak. He could only stand there and feel the weight of all those deaths pressing down on him. He had known this would happen. He had known the Velthari would make them pay for their defiance. But knowing something and seeing it were 2 very different things. The next transmission came an hour later. Veldus appeared on the screen again, his black eyes empty of any emotion. "You have seen what we can do," he said. "You have seen the price of defiance. I will give you one more chance. Kneel now, and no more of your people will die. Refuse again, and I will destroy every world you have ever touched. The choice is yours." The screen went dark. Sam waited for the fear to come. He waited for the doubt, the weakness, the voice in his head that would tell him to give up. But it did not come. Instead, he felt something else growing inside him. It was hot and fierce and terrible. It was rage. "Give me Dr. Sullivan," he said. "Right now." Kate Sullivan was the head of Coalition Weapons Research. She was a small woman with wild gray hair and glasses that were always slightly crooked. She had been working on a secret project for the last 3 years, something she called the Disruption Program. Sam had never asked for details. Now he needed to know everything. She arrived on the bridge 20 minutes later, carrying a tablet covered in equations that Sam could not understand. "I saw the colonies," she said. Her voice was quiet, but there was iron underneath it. "I saw what they did. Can your weapons work?" Sam asked, "Can they hurt the Velthari?" Kate looked at him for a long moment. "I do not know," she admitted. "We have never tested them. We never had time. But in theory, yes. Their shields operate on a specific frequency. My warheads are designed to disrupt that frequency. If they work, we can punch through their defenses. If they do not work, we will all die very quickly." Sam nodded. "Then we test them now." In battle, the first engagement happened above Mars. The Velthari had sent a small fleet to destroy the shipyards there, expecting no resistance. They found the entire human navy waiting for them. Sam watched from the bridge as his ships formed up into battle lines. They were so small compared to the enemy, so fragile, but they were his people, and they were not running away. "All ships," he said into the com. "This is Admiral Corbin. Today we fight for everyone we have lost. Today we fight for everyone we might still save. Today we show the galaxy that humanity does not kneel. All ships engage." The battle was chaos. Velthari weapons tore through human ships like paper. Sam watched good people die, watched ships he had known for years explode in bright flashes of light. The enemy was too strong. The enemy was too many. And for a terrible moment, he thought it was over. Then Captain Danny Vega did something impossible. Danny was the commander of a light cruiser called the Morning Star. It was a small ship, meant for patrol and escort duty. It had no business being in a fleet battle. But Danny had insisted on joining the fight. He had family on New Hope. He had nothing left to lose. When his ship took a direct hit and began to break apart, Danny did not order his crew to abandon ship. Instead, he turned toward the largest Velthari dreadnought and pushed his engines to maximum. He aimed for the spot where the enemy shields were weakest, where Kate Sullivan's weapons had created a tiny gap in their defenses. His last transmission was simple: "Tell them we did not kneel." The Morning Star hit the dreadnought at full speed. The explosion was visible from Mars. When the light faded, the enemy ship was gone. It was the first Velthari warship destroyed in 300 years. After that, everything changed. The human fleet attacked with new fury. Kate's weapons worked better than anyone had hoped, creating gaps in enemy shields that human missiles could exploit. The Velthari lost 12 ships before they finally retreated. It was not a victory. Humanity had lost 40 ships. Thousands of good people were dead. But the Velthari had lost 2. They had learned that humans could hurt them. They had learned that conquest would not be easy. That night, Archon Valethus sent another message. His voice was still cold, but there was something new in it. Something that might have been uncertainty. "You have surprised us," he said. "But you cannot win. You will run out of ships, out of soldiers, out of worlds. In the end, you will kneel. All species do." Sam Corbin recorded his response himself. He was tired. He was grieving. He had watched too many people die. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. "We did not kneel yesterday. We will not kneel today. And when tomorrow comes, we will still be standing. However long this takes, however much it costs, we will never give up. You can destroy our ships. You can burn our worlds. but you will never break our spirit. And as long as one human is still breathing, we will fight." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "We refuse to kneel, and we will keep refusing until you give up or we are all dead. Those are your only options. Choose wisely." Across the galaxy, humans watched their admiral speak, and in their hearts, something unbreakable began to grow. 5 years passed. 5 years of blood and fire and endless war. Sam Corbin stood at the window of his quarters on the Defiance and looked out at the stars. He was older now. His hair had gone gray. There were lines on his face that had not been there before. He had watched too many friends die. He had sent too many young people to their deaths. Some nights he could not sleep at all. Humanity had lost 7 colonies in those 5 years. The Velthari had killed billions of people, but they had paid for every world they took. They had lost more ships fighting humans than in their previous century of conquest. And across the galaxy, something strange was happening. The slaves were starting to wake up. Lieutenant Commander Megan Harris had been fighting behind enemy lines for 3 years. She led a small fleet of fast ships that struck Velthari supply lines and then disappeared before they could be caught. The enemy called her the Ghost. They had put a bounty on her head large enough to buy a small planet. She did not care about the bounty. She cared about winning. Tonight, she was hiding in the shadow of an asteroid, watching a Velthari supply convoy pass by. Her first officer, a young man named Tony Reeves, sat beside her on the bridge. 12 cargo ships, he said quietly. Heavy escort. For destroyers, 2 cruisers. If we hit them, we will take losses. Megan nodded. They know. But those supplies are heading for the front lines. If we stop them, it might give our main fleet the time they need. She gave the order. Her ships came out of hiding like wolves attacking a herd. The battle was short and brutal. They destroyed 8 cargo ships and 2 destroyers before the Velthari could respond. Then they ran, disappearing into the darkness of space before the enemy could catch them. 3 of her ships did not make it. 37 people died. Megan added their names to the list she kept in her quarters. The list was very long now, but as they fled, something unexpected happened. A transmission came through on an old frequency, one that humanity had stopped using years ago. The voice that spoke was not human, Ghost had said. The word was strange in the alien mouth, but recognizable. "We have seen you fight. We have heard the stories. We wish to speak with you." Megan looked at Tony. He shrugged. "Could be a trap." "Could be," she agreed. "But we have been fighting alone for 5 years. Maybe it is time to see if we have any friends." The meeting happened on a dead moon in a system that neither side controlled. Megan went alone, against the advice of everyone in her fleet. She brought a pistol and a prayer. The alien waiting for her was unlike anything she had seen before. It was tall and covered in green scales, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like copper. When it spoke, its voice was deep and rumbling. "I am Kethver," it said. "I speak for the Kethrai people. We have been slaves of the Velthari for 2,000 years." Megan kept her hand near her weapon. "Why did you want to meet?" Kethver was silent for a long moment. Then it did something that surprised her. It lowered its head in what was clearly a gesture of respect. "Because you did something we had forgotten was possible," it said. "You refused to kneel. For 2,000 years, my people have served the Empire. We have forgotten what freedom means. We have forgotten what hope feels like. But then we heard about the humans. We heard about the species that said no, and something woke up inside us. Something old and angry and hungry for freedom. It raised its head and looked at her with those glowing eyes. The Kethrai are ready to fight. We need allies. We need teachers. We need someone to show us how to stand." Megan felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away. "We are not doing so well ourselves. We have lost 7 worlds. Billions of people are dead. But you are still fighting," Kethver said. "That is what matters. That is what gives us hope." Over the next year, Megan worked with the Kethrai rebels in secret. She taught them human tactics. She shared the technology that Dr. Kate Sullivan had developed. She helped them plan their first strikes against their masters. And slowly, a rebellion began to grow. But the war with the Velthari continued. Humanity was running out of ships, running out of soldiers, running out of hope. Admiral Sam Corbin pushed his fleet to the breaking point, fighting battle after battle just to stay alive. Laura Mitchell, now a rear admiral herself, led the defense of the remaining colonies. They were holding on, but barely. Then the message came from the Velthari Emperor himself. His face filled the screen, ancient and terrible. He had ruled the empire for 1,000 years. He had seen 100 species kneel before him. When he spoke, his voice was like the grinding of mountains. "Humans," he said, "you have impressed me. In 1,000 years, no species has resisted as you have resisted. You have cost me ships, soldiers, and time. You have proven that you are not like the others." He paused. "Therefore, I am prepared to offer new terms. I no longer demand that you kneel. I demand only that you bow. Accept my authority. Become a subject race with limited freedoms. You will keep your worlds, your ships, your culture. You will simply acknowledge that the Empire is greater than you are." Sam watched the message on the bridge of the Defiance. His crew was silent. After 5 years of war, the Emperor was offering something that almost looked like peace. It was not freedom. But it was not slavery either. It was something in between. Laura Mitchell spoke first. "It is not a bad offer, Sam. We bow instead of kneel. We get to keep our worlds. Maybe we could rebuild. Maybe we could wait for a better moment to fight." Sam understood the temptation. He felt it himself. His people were tired. They were dying. And the Emperor was offering them a way out. But then he thought about Danny Vega. He's flying his dying ship into the heart of an enemy dreadnought. He thought about the 3 billion people who died on New Hope and Meridian and Frontier Station. He thought about Megan Harris and her ghost fleet fighting alone behind enemy lines. He thought about the Kethri and all the other species who had started to hope because humanity refused to give up. He picked up the cum and opened a channel to Earth. President Brooks was older now, gray-haired and tired, but his eyes were still fierce. "I assume you saw the message," Sam said. "I did." Brooks was quiet for a moment. "What do you think?" "I think Boeing is just kneeling with better public relations. I think if we accept, we are just delaying the chains instead of breaking them. And I think that if we give up now, every species that started to hope because of us will lose that hope forever." Brooks nodded slowly. "Then you know what we have to say." The response was broadcast across the galaxy. President Brooks stood before the cameras one more time, just as he had 5 years ago. "We refuse to kneel," he said. "Now we refuse to bow. We will not accept any form of submission. We will not acknowledge any authority but our own. We are humans. We are free, and we will die free before we live as anything else." Across the galaxy, the Kethri heard those words. So did a dozen other enslaved species, and in their hearts, rebellions began to burn. The Velthari Emperor was furious. For 8 years, humanity had defied him. They had refused to kneel. They had refused to bow. And now, across his empire, slave species were starting to rise up. The Kethri had destroyed 3 garrison stations. The Varathi had sabotaged a weapons factory. Even the Silken, the oldest and most broken of all his slave races, had begun to whisper about freedom. It was all because of the humans. They had become a symbol. They had become hope. And hope was the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. The Emperor gave the order. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon the Empire had would be sent to Earth. The human homeworld would be destroyed completely. Their species would be erased from history, and the galaxy would learn what happened to those who dared to dream of freedom. Admiral Sam Corbin saw them coming 3 days before they arrived. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 10,000 warships, troop carriers beyond counting, weapons platforms that could crack planets in half, all of them heading for Earth. He gathered his officers on the bridge of the Defiance. They were tired. They were scared. They had been fighting for 8 years without rest. But when Sam looked at their faces, he saw something that made him proud. He saw determination. He saw courage. He saw the refusal to give up that had defined humanity since the beginning of this war. "You all know what is coming," he said. "This is everything they have. They want to end us. They want to destroy our home and break our spirit and make the galaxy forget we ever existed." He paused and looked at each of them in turn. Laura Mitchell, his oldest friend. Kate Sullivan, the scientist who had given them weapons to fight back. Tony Reeves, who had come up from Megan Harris's Ghost Fleet. And dozens of others, young and old, all of them willing to die for their people. "We cannot win this battle," Sam continued. "Not with what we have. But we can make them pay such a price that they will never recover. We can show the galaxy that humans die on their feet, not on their knees. And maybe, just maybe, we can hold out long enough for a miracle." Laura Mitchell stepped forward. "What kind of miracle are you hoping for?" Sam smiled, though there was sadness in it. "The kind that happens when people refuse to give up. The kind that happens when hope spreads farther than anyone expected." The Battle of Seoul began 3 days later. The Velthary fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel and filled the sky above Earth like a storm of metal and fire. There were so many ships that they blocked out the sun. The planet below fell into shadow. Sam Corbin stood on the bridge of the HFY Defiance and gave the order to engage. What followed was the most brutal battle in human history. Velthary weapons tore through the human fleet. Ships exploded in bright flashes of light. Good people died by the thousands, then by the hundreds of thousands. Laura Mitchell led the fighter squadrons, weaving through enemy fire with impossible skill. Kate Sullivan directed the weapons platforms, squeezing every last drop of power from her inventions. Tony Reeves commanded the rear guard, protecting the evacuation ships that were trying to save civilians, but it was not enough. It was never going to be enough. On the 6th day, the Velthary broke through the orbital defenses and began bombing Earth. Entire cities disappeared in pillars of fire. The oceans boiled. Mountains crumbled into dust. Sam watched his homeworld die and felt something break inside him. On the 8th day, the Defiance took a direct hit. The bridge was destroyed. Sam was thrown across the room, his body broken in a dozen places. When he woke up in the medical bay, the doctor told him they had to evacuate. "No," Sam said. His voice was weak, but his eyes were fierce. "I am not leaving my ship. I am not leaving my post. If Earth falls today, they will find me standing where I belong." On the 10th day, the moon was shattered. Debris rained down on Earth. The planet was dying. The fleet was almost gone. Sam Corbin, held together by bandages and willpower and nothing else, watched from his ruined bridge and prepared to give the order for a final charge. Then the miracle happened. Megan Harris's voice came through the cum, filled with an emotion that Sam had not heard in years. Joy. "Hey, Sam. Sam, look at your sensors. Look at what is coming." He turned to the display. For a moment, he could not understand what he was seeing. There were ships appearing at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of ships, then thousands. Ships in configurations he had never seen before. Ships bearing symbols that were not human. "It is the Kethrai," Megan said, and now she was laughing. "It is the Kethrai and the Varathi and the Silken and 6 other species. They rose up, Sam. They rose up across the Empire, and they came to help us." Kethfer's voice came through next, rumbling and fierce. "Humans, we heard you were in trouble. We came as fast as we could. Today, we fight together. Today, we show the Empire what happens when slaves remember how to stand." The rebel fleet hit the Velthary from behind. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years found themselves caught between 2 enemies. The slaves they had broken were no longer broken. The hope they had tried to crush had spread too far to stop. The battle lasted 2 more days. Earth was scarred and broken, but it survived. The Velthary fleet was destroyed almost completely. Archon Vaelthus went down with his flagship, cursing humanity with his last breath. On the 12th day, the guns fell silent. Sam Corbin stood on the ruined bridge of the Defiance and looked at what was left of his fleet. They had lost so many. The cost was beyond counting, but they had one. A transmission came through from the Velthari Emperor. His face was twisted with rage and something else, something that looked almost like fear. "This is not over," he said. "I will rebuild. I will return. And I will make you suffer for what you have done." Sam Corbin was tired. He was broken. He had lost friends, family, and more than he could ever say. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. "You can try. But let me tell you what will happen. We will be here waiting for you. And so will they." He gestured at the displays showing the Allied fleet. "You spent 1,000 years teaching the galaxy to kneel. We spent 8 years teaching them to stand. And now they remember what you made them forget. Freedom is worth fighting for. Hope is worth dying for. And no empire, no matter how powerful, can break the spirit of those who refuse to bow." He leaned forward, his eyes burning despite his wounds. "So come back whenever you want. We will be ready. And next time we are not just going to defend. Next time, we are coming for you."
Ain't the transmission ended?
Across the galaxy, enslaved species heard the news. Earth had survived. The Empire had been broken. And humanity was still standing. The age of kneeling was over. The age of freedom had begun. 2 years after the Battle of Sol. The Velthari Empire collapsed. It did not happen all at once. It happened in pieces, like a building falling apart brick by brick. The rebel species pushed forward, taking back worlds that had been stolen from them centuries ago. The Velthari fought back, but their heart was broken. They had been invincible for 1,000 years. They had never imagined that slaves could rise. They had never imagined that one small species from a small wet world could change everything. The Emperor died in his palace, alone and afraid, as rebel ships burned in the sky above his homeworld. His last words, according to the few who were there, were a question: how? How did they beat us? Nobody answered him. But the answer was simple. They beat him because they refused to give up. They beat him because hope is stronger than fear. They beat him because once people remember how to stand, they never forget again. Sam Corbin did not see the end of the war. His injuries from the Battle of Sol never fully healed. He spent his last months in a hospital on Earth, watching through the window as his broken world slowly came back to life. Trees were planted in the ashes of dead cities. Rivers flowed again through valleys that had been turned to glass. Children played in parks that had been built on the graves of their grandparents. Laura Mitchell visited him every day. She would sit beside his bed and tell him about the news from the front. Each day brought reports of another Velthari defeat, another world freed, another chain broken. Sam would listen and nod and sometimes smile, though it clearly hurt him to do so. "We did it, Sam," Laura said one evening. The sun was setting over the ruins of what had once been a great city, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. "We actually did it. We saved our people. We freed the galaxy." Sam looked at her with eyes that were still fierce despite his weakness. "No," he said. "Not we. They did it. The young people who flew into battle, knowing they would not come back. The scientists who worked without sleep to give us weapons. The soldiers who held the line when everything seemed lost. They did it. We just gave them the chance." He was quiet for a moment. "Do you remember what I said at the beginning? When the Velthari first came," Laura nodded, "you said we refused to kneel."
Yes.
"But it was never about the words. It was about what the words meant. It was about deciding that some things are worth dying for.
Freedom.
Dignity. Hope. The Velthari forgot that a long time ago. They thought power was everything. They thought fear was enough to control the galaxy. But fear only works until people find something they are more afraid of than death. What are people more afraid of than death?" Laura asked. Sam smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was warmth in it. Living without meaning. Living as slaves. Passing that slavery on to their children. That is what we were more afraid of. That is why we fought. And that is why we won. He died 3 days later, peacefully, in his sleep. The galaxy mourned him. Ships from 47 species flew over Earth in his honor. Even former enemies, Velthari officers who had surrendered and been treated with mercy, lowered their flags for the human who had taught them that empires could fall. 1 year after the war ended, a memorial was unveiled on Earth. It stood in a valley that had been destroyed by Velthari weapons, a place where nothing had survived the battle. Now, grass grew there again. Flowers bloomed. And in the center of the valley, a wall of black stone stretched for miles, covered in names, the names of every human who had died in the war. Billions of names carved into stone that would last forever. Megan Harris stood at the ceremony, wearing her uniform for the first time in months. She had retired from the military after the war. She had seen enough fighting to last several lifetimes. But today was different. Today was about remembering. Beside her stood an old friend. Tony Reeves had gray in his hair now, and scars that would never fade. But he was smiling as he looked at the memorial. "Do you think they would be proud?" he asked everyone who died. "Do you think they would be proud of what we built?" Megan looked at the wall of names. She saw friends there. She saw family. She saw people she had led into battle, knowing some of them would not come back. "I think they would be proud that we are still free," she said. "I think that is all they ever wanted." Ambassadors from 47 species attended the ceremony. They came from worlds that had been enslaved for centuries, from worlds that had only just learned what freedom meant. They stood together, former masters and former slaves, and they watched as speakers took the stage. Cuthbert spoke first. He was old now, his scales faded and his movements slow, but his voice was still strong. "I was born a slave," he said. "My parents were slaves. Their parents were slaves. For 2,000 years, my people served the empire. We had forgotten what freedom meant. We had forgotten what hope felt like. We had even forgotten how to dream." He paused and looked at the human faces in the crowd. "Then we heard about you. We heard about the species that said no. We heard about the ships that flew into certain death rather than surrender. We heard about the soldiers who wrote, 'We refused to kneel on their helmets before going into battle.' And something woke up inside us. Something old and fierce and beautiful. We remembered how to stand." He bowed his head toward the memorial. "You did not just save your own people. You saved all of us. You showed the galaxy that chains can be broken, that tyrants can fall, that the powerful are not invincible. You gave us back something we had lost. You gave us back ourselves." President Nathan Brooks gave the final speech. He was very old now, his hair white and his hands shaking. But when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of everything humanity had survived. 11 years ago, they came to our world and told us to kneel. We refused. They burned our colonies and told us to bow. We refused. They sent their entire empire against us and told us to break. We refused. He looked at the memorial, at the miles of names carved in black stone. They are the reason we are still here. They are the reason we are still free. They paid the price that freedom demands, and we will never forget them. He turned to face the crowd, humans and aliens standing together under a clear blue sky. "Let this memorial stand forever. Let it remind the galaxy what happens when ordinary people decide that some things are worth fighting for. Let it remind every tyrant who comes after that empires can fall. And let it remind every slave, every prisoner, every beaten-down soul who has forgotten how to hope that they are not alone. That someone, somewhere, will always stand up. That freedom is not a gift given by the powerful, but a right claimed by the brave." He looked up at the sky, at the stars that humanity had almost lost. "They asked us to kneel. We refused. They asked us to bow. We refused. They asked us to break. We refused. And when history asked what kind of people we were, we answered the only way we knew how." He smiled, and there were tears in his eyes. By standing up, by never giving up, and by teaching a galaxy to do the same. The memorial's inscription caught the light of Earth's sun. It would stand for 1,000 years, a reminder to every species that would ever see it. Here stand the names of those who refused to kneel, refused to bow, and taught a galaxy how to stand. The war was over. Freedom had won, and humanity scarred but unbroken. Looked toward the stars and began to build a future worthy of everyone who had died to make it possible.